welcome back to Wonky Kids and Everything. As usual, I have no clue what episode this is, but you might notice we're a little weird, different tonight. Mama and True currently have the flu, so I'm doing tonight's episode by myself. I just hope I can do it justice. So just bear with me. I know the better half of the comedy or the show is not here tonight, but I'm going to try and do it justice and try and hopefully do at least okay. And I tried to think of something that I could talk about without her and still maybe pull it off. That was actually really hard to come up with. I'm used to that not bad banner, but the banner back and forth as far as being able to fire off of each other or shoot ideas off of each other or piggyback off of her. So we'll see how this goes. So the topic I came up with is what I wish I would have known getting married young, still learning, and advice. What I'm still learning, advice I would give to others, and that I'm also giving to myself to continue to do or do better at, and things I wish I would have known getting married young. Some things you could ask people when you're getting married young, like what advice would you have? And you get the normal, what is it? The word I'm looking for, I can't think of, but just the same normal responses. This is sometimes you need it from somebody in a different angle. And mind you, I'm still working on myself. I will never be perfect. I'm not a perfect wife. I'm not a perfect mother. I won't claim to be. I never will be. That's like today, as far as motherhood. Today was a failure in the motherhood department. I failed greatly. I still have a lot of work in the patient's area when it comes to motherhood. I will never be. That's one area I struggle in, and the devil was rampant in the temptation today, and I failed the Lord in many ways today. There's some days that are better than others, and then there's other days where I greatly fall. Maybe all of this will make sense. Maybe I don't have anyone here to ask if it makes sense this time. So that's also a little fear of mine, that my words won't commute from my head to my mouth, because sometimes that happens greatly. So here we go, and hopefully I won't be too terribly long in this either. So here we go. But one thing I wish, I got married at 18. Brandon was 25, I believe. He was 25, I think. I was 18. I had just turned 18 like 2 weeks prior. If people often ask me if I could go back, would I have married as young? Or if one of my kids came up to me and asked me if they could get married at 18. If I could go back, I wouldn't change getting married young. I just wish I would have handled a lot of things differently, because if I hadn't gotten married when I had, there's a possibility it wouldn't have been Brandon. And of course, God's plan always prevails, and Brandon and I were supposed to get married, so we got married. But I also think there was a lot of lessons I had to learn the hard way. So I wish I would have handled things differently, especially at the beginning of our marriage, yes. But would I change it? No. And if one of my kids came to me and said they wanted to get married young, if their spouse, if the girls had a man of God and Gus had a woman of God, a daughter of the King, we sat down and we talked to them, and they were on the right path, I would have no problem with saying, yes, I approve each person is different and it shouldn't be based off of specifically their age. So, one thing I wish I would have known getting married so young is about patience. How much patience it was going to take for me to learn Brandon. And we're still learning each other every day. But for me to figure out my role, patience with myself, patience with him, patience with God, that was something I wish somebody would have said. Have grace with yourself, have patience with yourself, because I would get so aggravated at myself why I couldn't figure out certain things, and that caused a lot of problems with myself, which resulted in problems that I carried out towards Brandon. I had a lot of insecurities, I had a lot of things I had not dealt with, and past things and situations I had not dealt with going into the marriage because I had not opened up about it to anybody, and that was my own fault. I didn't feel comfortable opening up about those things yet. I don't know why I was getting married, but those are very deep wounded things. And again, I know I'm sitting here saying I got married when I was 18, but again, some of those things had just happened not long before I met Brandon and before we got married. So it was a process and deal. But at the same time, if I had not met Brandon when I did, sorry for the squeaking of the chair. If I had not met Brandon when I did and had not, if it wasn't for him, God used him also as a tool for me to open up about these things and for me to start processing these things. Did I handle it in the right way? No. Did I have a lot of anger issues? Yes. Did I have a lot of other issues? Yes. I was a mess. I was a big mess. I personally caused a lot of problems in our family. It wasn't intentional. It was unintentional because I hadn't gone to therapy. I had not dealt with myself and started fixing myself and was taking things out on other people. So, with all that being said, what I'm trying to say is if your spouse comes to you and tries to address an issue with you, be patient with them because it may be something that you don't realize. It's not meant personally. It's trying to work on your marriage cohesively. When I say this, I mean in the best version of a marriage you can think of. I'm not talking about abusive relationships or anything like that. I'm talking about a quote unquote normal marriage where you are both equally yoked in the Lord, and but you're trying to work on yourself while working with each other, helping each other, be patient with each other. If y'all have had a fight, you're going to have to figure out ways to talk to each other that work. I never realized there were necessarily different ways to confront each other after an argument. Don't do it derogatory. Don't do it in anger. Don't wait till late at night. It has been our personal experience. We cannot discuss anything late at night. It does not end well. But also, with that being said, just because something works for us doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Or just because it works for some friends doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Y'all have to figure out your own path, your own learning curve, your own stride. When somebody tries to, I know this is technically advice. This is just things that have worked for me, worked for us. This is just to let you know that you're not the only one. But at the same time, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you how to handle or how to do this or how to do that. Again, this is just what I wish I would have known too. What works best for Georgina and Fred or Harry and Leslie may not work for y'all, and that's fine. So if somebody comes up to you and says, well, you need to do this, don't take their advice. Figure out what works best for y'all, because you two are the marriage, not them. So when Brandon would try to correct me, when I say correct me, when he would try to guide me or be the husband, I had a really big problem with men trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't like when a man tried to tell me what to do, not because of anything my daddy had ever done, not because of anything my pa had ever done, but because of things other people had done. And I had insecurities that, again, I had to work through in therapy and work out. But I took it personal, as a personal attack. And we had to learn and grow together. I had to allow him to talk to me. And it goes both ways, but I have to be able to listen. When your spouse is sitting there telling you something that you've done that makes them feel a certain way, don't interrupt, don't butt. Let them talk, listen. And are there times we all still screw up? No marriage is perfect. You're gonna have still your bad arguments, but this is just things I wish I would have known. Like, hey, this is normal to sit here and talk about. But figure out what works best for you and him, or him and her. Again, don't do what others tell you. If you need to take a break, pray about it, come back to it, wonderful. Sometimes some things are left best just, let's not touch that again. It was an argument, it was a fight, let's move on. Do what is best for y'all. Something I wish I would have known also is some people do have separate bank accounts, and because money is a big stressor. Money was a big stressor for us. So what we did is, or before, I no longer have a job, we had a joint bank account, but while I had my bank account and he had his, because that was a big stressor. But once we did that, money was no longer a stressor, as far as we no longer had arguments over that. I didn't try, it was not that I ever felt like, it just worked best that way for us, and that's okay. Some people may not agree with that, because yes, when you're married, you're supposed to be one, and a lot of people take that as, okay, well, everything, they take that to that, and yes, I agree, a joint bank account is good, but when it comes to it becoming money becomes such a stressor, I feel like it's okay to have each a separate bank account. And like I said, that's just what worked best for us. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time to make sure. Okay, it's either 18 or 13 minutes. I can't tell, but we're still good. Before you get married, make sure that you have a good marriage counselor, someone that will help start to guide you into your roles as husband and wife. A good marriage counselor, not somebody that's just going to sit you down and read a bunch of pages or have you fill out a bunch of questions and then not go over them with you. Have a good marriage counselor. Usually it's the pastor that's going to marry you before, like, pre-marriage counseling is what they call it, I believe. Usually it's the preacher that's going to marry you. So don't just randomly pick somebody. Pick somebody with intention. And never stop reading those roles. Never stop studying those roles. Never stop trying to get better at those roles and pursue those roles. A piece of advice I have, and this is something that you will always work on. Make sure that your relationship is truly centered around God. Don't just say it's a God-centered relationship. Truly have God at the center, because when I fell wayside myself at falling away from putting God at the center for me is when I really started struggling. That was just me personally. Don't just, like I said, don't just say you have a God-centered relationship when you are clearly sinning, and this relationship is nowhere. We all sin when I say that. Whenever your relationship clearly is not centered around God, um, if you don't honor what God says and what He calls us to do, especially when you claim to be a Christian, if you don't have a God-centered relationship and you are not centering your relationship around what God calls us to do, but also what He calls us not to do, how can you expect God to honor that relationship or for that relationship to work out? A lot of folks wonder why their relationship doesn't work out. Well, again, I know things happen, but God only condones divorce in certain circumstances. Whenever you're going out partying as a engaged couple, a dating couple, or a married couple, and you're engaging in these scenarios with other people as if they were your significant other when they're clearly not, how can you expect God to honor that? God wants us to have a healthy marriage around Him. One thing that a lot of people have gotten slack on and lax on, that you hear so many people that claim to be Christians, is sex before marriage. God tells us that is a big no-no. If you are out and about sleeping around claiming to be a Christian, and you are sleeping around, it plain as day, you either believe every single word in this or you don't. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. If you are sleeping around before marriage, and God tells us not to do that, how do you expect God to honor that relationship, build that relationship? It's not going to be fruitful. That relationship is not going to be fruitful. If you are going out and having sex before marriage, that is wrong. God will not honor that. And your relationship will suffer eventually at some point because of it. Sex within marriage is supposed to be a beautiful thing. And a lot of people use the excuse of, well, what happens if you get married and there's no chemistry? Or don't you, like when you go to the store, don't you want to, try it before you buy it? Okay, if your relationship is centered around Christ and you are both meant for each other and God made you for each other, then, and God is the center, that's all you need. There will be chemistry because God ordained it. So that's just an excuse to try and excuse your sin. That's all that is, and there is no excuse for it. So whenever you're standing in front of God one day and He asks you why you have slept with all these people and you were not married to them, are you just going to say, what's going to be your excuse? There's going to be no excuse. And again, yes, I know we have all sinned, we all fall short, but it's whenever it's a constant thing too. Whenever you know it's wrong, but you're continuing to do it, and that's when you need to worry. That's when you also need to question a lot of things. And it's not just with that, it's with anything that God commands us not to do that we continually do. But that also hurts a lot of marriages. God considers it as sacred as it is for a reason, but people hand it out like it's candy. I don't understand. I just don't understand. But again, God is very graceful with us. He has so much mercy with us. And when we come to Him and we admit these faults of these sins and we lean into Him and we start to change our ways and we want to center our relationship around Christ, and we start to do that, yes, there will be temptation. Yes, we will probably still fall short. But the fact is that you're trying. You're actually trying. You're not just saying you're doing it, and it's not. And you're not Owen all the time. A lot of times we'll have one or two backslides, but whenever we're, and I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say, but we can't say we're doing something, but there's no action behind it. You may be fooling the people around you, but you're not fooling God. Um, One thing, another piece of advice or I wish I knew getting married young is I've always grown up, and yes, man is head of the household, husband is head of the household, but I really wish I would have truly known what that meant. And sometimes the struggles that will come with that, because sometimes your husband, now, let me say this, because I know some people think, oh, the extreme. If your husband goes out and tells you to knock somebody off I'm not saying do that, but if you're, okay, back to money a little bit. If y'all have come up, if your husband knows the finances and he, y'all come up with a budget and your husband tells you, okay, we may have to cut this out. I may have to cut this out, but you may have to cut this out. We also are supposed to honor that. We're not supposed to argue. If your husband looks at you and he tells you that this group of people is a bad influence, and they are, and he says, I don't think we should hang around them anymore, no matter how much you want to argue and fight back and say no, you are to trust your husband, because God may be giving him discernment about something as well, and he can give you discernment too. It's not that. We're supposed to honor our husband. He is head of the home, but also there's so much involved in that, and that'll be a whole nother episode. That could be a whole nother episode. Advice that I would give is also make sure before you enter into a relationship that one of your first questions is, have you asked Jesus into your heart, and are you a child of God? And go into what that truly means. Ask them what that truly means to make sure that they truly know what the Bible says. Don't ask them if they're a Christian, because unfortunately now when you ask somebody they're a Christian, they could think that means I can be gay, I can go out and do drugs all the time, I can go murder somebody. Like, it could mean to them all kinds of things, unfortunately. Make sure that they know what the scripture says. Make sure that y'all are equally yoked. That will make a huge difference. You shouldn't learn these things about each other 6 months into dating, 3 months into dating. These should be first conversation topics before you even start dating. Another advice I'd get is do not date unless you can have an intention to marry. Don't just start dating somebody because they're cute. Don't just start dating somebody because they talk to you. If you cannot see, if you start talking to this person, you're like, God has given me discernment. I think that I am not meant for this person. Don't continue to date them. If you are just dating this person because you have bad thoughts or bad intentions as far as immoral intentions according to God's word, then again, it's not God-centered, and what are you doing? Let's see. What else I got? Advice. This is a big one, and I had to learn this the hard way. This caused more issues. And again, that was on me. Do not go to your parents or friends when you have a fight. Do not. Do not. If you need to talk to somebody about, my eye's twitching. I hope that's not on camera because it probably looks really weird. If you need to talk to somebody about stuff going on in your marriage, you need to find a neutral party, your pastor, a therapist, but make sure they are not one-sided, because unfortunately, whether your parents say it or not, if you go to your parents and he goes to his parents, some part of them is going to side with their child. I don't care what they say. Some part of them is going to side with their child, and it's going to cause more. You are trying to work it out with your parents instead of working it out with yourself. That's not going to do any good. It's not. That's one thing I will say. Again, each to their own relationship. But if I had to give any one piece of advice, unsolicited, unfiltered advice, that would be it. Do not go to your parents, family, or friends with your fights. Work it out with each other. It's nobody else's business, and going to everybody else is going to make it way more complicated. Take it from someone who knows. And anyways, yes, you're also respecting each other by coming to each other. If you are going away from each other, you're not coming together. You're not respecting each other. You going to your parents, him going to his parents. It's just turning into, you may sit there and say, yes, well, I should have done this better, but ultimately it turns into a she said, he said, she said thing, and it's not going to do any good. It's not going to fix anything. Also, I fixed me some hot tea, and a medicinal tip, way off topic, medicinal tip. We always hear put honey in your hot tea. Well, if you add honey to your hot tea, when it is stifling hot, it actually kills the medicinal properties of the honey. So let your hot tea cool down just a little bit, then add your honey. Not only do you get a little bit of sweetener, but you also get the medicinal properties of it. I've just started trying to drink tea at night instead of coffee, and it I don't know if it works or not, but I like it personally. I think it does help me relax a little bit. So anything. Again, sorry for the squeaking. That the respect goes back into money. If you both, just say, in my instance, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I am very, even though it was not planned, I'm very blessed to be in the stage that I am now. And I know that's the word I was trying to look for a while ago. A cliche to say. I know it's kind of a cliche to say I'm very blessed, but for years I was away from the kids because I didn't have a choice. And being home now, I didn't have a choice, but I wouldn't take it for anything. I really wouldn't. Are there hard days that you want to pull your hair out? Yes. But I'm getting time with them that I didn't get time before. Anyways, say your husband is the main breadwinner of the house, and he says, okay, we need to have this budget, and you have X amount of dollars to spend a month on whatever you want to spend. Buy the groceries and everything else, but this amount of money you have to spend on yourself, to just whatever. And you don't respect that. That's also disrespecting him. Sometimes, I don't personally do this. I don't care to do this. But if that means you have to cut out getting your nails done, that's not a necessity. That's a want. That's not a need. That's a want. Pointing to myself. You may not be able to get that $7 coffee from town every single day or once a week or whatever, and that's okay. You can make coffee at home. As much as that sucks, you can make coffee at home, but also following these actions, and your husband is out working to provide a roof over your head. And whether it's you can't work because of physical ailments, mental ailments, or that's just something y'all decided that you were going to be stay at home, whether you have kids or not. Respect that. He's out there working to provide a roof over your head. The least we can do is respect that. I don't, if I leave the house, I go grocery shopping usually about once a month, and that's a stretch to make it last. But I'll go through the drive-thru and treat myself to a coffee then. Very rarely will I go during the week other than that to get a coffee. That is, knock on wood, we have not been sick yet, But if the kids are sick, I will usually go through and swing and get me a coffee. That's after having to take them to the doctor. That's just kind of, hey, I'm just gonna say it's better than drugs. Okay, it could be worse. Um, so, but respect goes such a long way. Back to also, sorry, my notes are kind of all over the place. I was cooking supper and writing all this at the same time, so it may be a little sporadic. So sorry. I have ADD, ADHD, and unmedicated for that. So here we are. Back to the relationship, as far as don't go to your parents, friends, or family for fights. This relationship is between you, God, and your spouse. If you're a woman, between your husband. If you're a man, between your wife. It's not between anyone else. What matters is those three, not anyone else. And that's, yes. So also, have the awkward conversations. Have the awkward conversations. Don't wait till after you're engaged or after you're married. Both of us knew we wanted kids. The main thing is to know that you want kids. It's not necessarily that you have to decide on the number that you want right away, because if you do have kids after that first birth, you both may change your mind, or you may wait a little bit and you both may change your mind. You want more, or you're good where you're at. Just be landing on the same page, especially for that, because don't make that baby suffer of because one wanted a child, one didn't, and then one is now resenting the child and the other parent. Don't do that to that baby. That baby deserves so much better. There's lots of other awkward, like, you do need to have the conversation of, I am saving myself for marriage, or I will not be sleeping with anyone until I get married. You need to have that conversation. That is a very important conversation. Don't enter into the relationship assuming, because there's a lot of people walking around saying they're Christians, and that they know God, but again, the devil and Lucifer knew who God was. Saying you know God is like saying I know what Taco Bell is. Everybody knows what Taco Bell is, but it don't matter. Make sure that they have a personal relationship with God, and that they are on the same level about the things that God tells us to do as a husband. Make sure they're on the same thing as what God tells us to do as a wife. Advice I would have is be intentional with your actions. The small things count. With that, don't be petty. Do not be petty. Do not get your knickers all in a twist and so upset that it causes a major fight because somebody forgot Valentine's Day. Okay, it's just a day. Here's my perspective, mine and Brandon's perspective. Valentine's Day does not make the marriage. A holiday does not make the marriage. It doesn't. That does not define the marriage. And if you think it does define the marriage, and if you think it does define whether your spouse loves you or not, then you have bigger problems than them not getting you something for Valentine's Day or your birthday or Christmas or whatever day it may be. It's whenever, think about this. On Valentine's Day, most men feel the pressure that they have to get you something. It's not that they really want to, it's that they feel like they have to. Wouldn't you rather him show up randomly on some random day with, or just cooking supper or getting supper or whatever it may be on a random day because he wants to, than rather than he feels like he has to? We don't do anything for Valentine's Day. We don't want to do anything. We do things for each other when we want to, because we want to and because we care to, and we're doing it with intention. I'm not sitting here being petty, and he's not either, about, you didn't get me flowers for Valentine's Day. Well, both of them flowers die. And that is money wasted that could have gone to the food in the refrigerator or a good old steak. Same with, he'll tell me all the time, especially for Christmas. He'll say, I don't want anything. But when he gets stuff, it's intentional. one of my favorite things that he does, and it's at random times, and I make these things last when I say flowers die. I'm meaning in the sense of feeling like you have to do it and go spend this money on this $30 flower bundle that's going to die in a week, but you only did it because you felt like you had to. My point is, he knows I love sunflowers. And a lot of times he'll have an empty Gatorade bottle or empty plastic bottle or whatever, and he'll see some and he'll stop on the side of the road and he will pick them and put them in that bottle. I would rather have that on any random day because he wanted to. He saw them and he thought of me. He wanted to than feeling like he had to, because then it's pretty much meaningless. It's I've always found that so stupid. You didn't give me something on Valentine's Day. Is that your biggest worry? We got bigger problems then. And and the same thing with the kids. He'll see something random, just a random day, and he'll grab something, and that means more the world to them, and it lights up my world too, seeing him do that for them, and then how much they light up. This is more an episode, I guess, on, yes, it has to do with kids some, but, and that's another thing, talk about your parenting style, like when you have kids, or if you have kids, what it would look like as parents, how y'all would discipline, how y'all would do this. Talk about that, because if you don't, especially the discipline part, if you don't talk about the discipline part before you get married and you do have kids, that could also cause a bunch of issues and a bunch of fights, because you were raised a little bit differently, and this varies in that, and there's some things you'll just learn along the way. There's some things you won't know till the time comes, till that moment, and that's fine too. But the major stuff, definitely talk about. Let's see. So, also, ladies and men too, know your worth. God again says that we are supposed to save ourselves for marriage, and if the person you are interested in, if they are not willing to honor that commandment of God, then they don't have God's intentions at heart or your best intentions at heart. He's not, if you're a guy, she's not the one if she's not willing to honor that. If you're a girl and he's not willing to honor that, then he's not the one. The saying of, well, how do you not just give in? Well, I'm scared they're going to leave. That's an excuse. That is an excuse to be able to get into bed with that person and to let the devil win and to have those few moments of sensation. But you have again defiled God. That is just an excuse, because when you get in front of God, is that the excuse you're going to give him? I was scared he was going to leave. I was scared she was going to leave. That's just an excuse. If they are not willing to honor God's commitments with that, or anything that God commands us to do as a spouse, and they're like, no, I can't do that, they're not the one. They are not the one. So, hang on. You're willing to sin just as bad as they are if you give in to that. You're both you're literally both saying, I want to sin. And again, that's with anything. That's with how you go about your relationship and always. But that's just one that you hear a lot about. That is just a main one that you hear the excuse about. A lot of people say, well, we just need to see if the chemistry works. Well, again, if you are meant for each other and you were made for it, God created you for him and him for her, then the chemistry will be there, because it will be within God's standards of marriage, and within in a marriage bound together by God and with God at the center, and you both chose each other with God at the center, then the chemistry will be there. That's all there is to it. You don't need to worry about that. So that's just another excuse to say, well, don't you want to try it before you buy it? No, that's just an excuse. But if God is at the center and you have a Christ-centered marriage, there will be chemistry. That's all there is to it. It's called, if God has called both of you to marry each other, then it will be within the holy standards of marriage. But also, something I wish I would have known more about is, you hear about being Christ-centered before the marriage and what you should do entering into the relationship, but a lot of things you don't hear people talk about, because they think once you get married, like, that all that's gone away, or if the people get lax on it. I got lax on it because I was like, okay, I'm married now. I stayed pretty consistent in my Bible. It's not that I tossed my Bible away or anything. I just wasn't as dedicated to it as I should have been. We get married and we get kind of lax, or we do in everyday life. We get lax, and I did, and that's when I really started to struggle too. But continue to stay in your word after you get married. Do a Bible study together. You also need to feed yourselves as a whole, because once you are married, you are becoming one. So you need to feed yourself as a whole, but also you need to feed yourself individually. It says in Proverbs 31, verse 10 is, who can find a wife of noble character? She is far more precious than jewels. That needs no explanation in my mind. Far more precious than jewels. A wife that is noble, that follows what the Lord says, that has Christ at the center of her mind, and that far more precious than jewels. There was another one I was gonna. She rises while it's still night, provides food for her household and portions for her female servants. She's putting in the hard work for her family. And if I had a person that was as close to a perfect Proverbs 30 woman that I could have in mind, it was Nema. Nema set the standard for Proverbs 31 woman, the most I have ever seen and probably will ever see in my life. If I can be a fourth of what Nema was and what she exemplified herself to be and showed us as a God-fearing wife, as a God-fearing woman, I just hope I can at least do a portion of that, because yeah, she is not afraid for her household when it snows, for all in her household are doubly clothed. She makes her own bed coverings. Oh, I should have told you what verse this was. Starting at verse 21. She makes her own bed coverings, and her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the city gates, where he sits among the elders of the land. She makes and sells linen garments. She delivers belts to the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she can laugh at the time to come. Her mouth speaks wisdom, and loving instruction on her tongue. She watches over the activities of her household and is never idle. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Many women have done noble deeds, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. Just because somebody looks pretty don't mean nothing. It's about what's in their heart. Because as it says, beauty is fleeting. You may not always be that pretty forever, but it's what's in your heart. But a woman who fears the Lord will be praised, and that's the most important thing, is if you are a God-fearing woman. Give her the reward of her labor, and let her work praise her at the city gates. She is working. She is providing for her family. She's not just sitting there twiddling her thumbs. She is doing the work of the Lord. And a Proverbs 31 woman, a lot of things I've seen is people saying my morning as a Proverbs 31 woman when all they're doing is their skincare. And yes, we're supposed to take care of ourselves. Don't take it as that. Doing their skincare and doing things, fixing their coffee. It has nothing to do with what a Proverbs 31 woman is. You washing your face and fixing your coffee a certain way and showing what items you're using, that has nothing to do with being a Proverbs 31 woman. I'm glad that you're wanting to be a Proverbs 31 woman, but that's just not what it is. And we have made when we say I want to be a Proverbs 31 woman, that has also become a cliche. My favorite one is a wife of noble character is far more precious than jewels. Proverbs 31:10. That's actually, so the tattoo on my arm is in Hebrew, and it means woman of valor, and it refers to this verse. It's not because I think that's who I am. It's a reminder to myself. It's a reminder to strive to be that, and that's who I should be. And to not let myself stray in my marriage like I have before, in letting myself fall away from what God calls me to do. These are just some things I wish I would have, like I said, known before, or I had thought to ask people. And again, everybody's relationship is different, but they may say something that God can use to prick and go, oh, you're not exactly like this, but this is a little bit of advice we can take from this. I hope that was all within the parameters of kind of what I was wanting to talk about. I was trying to think of anything else that, again, I'm still learning. I'm not perfect. I struggle a lot. I get lost a lot in my own head, and that's the enemy trying to pull me away from what God wants me to do. And I fall into that more than I should, as far as doubting myself. And I fail again in many ways. I could talk about all my failures all day long, but the mercy and grace that God has with us within our marriage is, advice. Do not, again, there are certain circumstances where God says a divorce is okay. It's I don't want to say allowed, but allowed. Another word is fleeing me right now because my brain is starting to turn to mush. But do not, in a fight, no matter how angry you are, do not throw out, well, I want a divorce, or what about a divorce? Do not play with that. Do not play with that. That is the enemy dangling fire in both of your faces, because when you're angry and you're in a fight, you're both heated, you're both probably saying things neither one of you mean. Do not threaten a divorce unless you truly mean it and you're willing to go there and you're willing to break up your marriage and your family, whether you have kids or not, but your family. And it's not based on any God's biblical saying that, yes, the divorces, that it's okay. Don't dangle that. Do not dangle that. It will cause so many problems, and it may cause problems that you can't bounce back from. A divorce is nothing to be taken lightly. So many people say, well, it's just a piece of paper. Well, if you're entering into a marriage by saying, well, a marriage is just a piece of paper, well, then you're not in the right mindset, and you don't need to be entering into a marriage anyways. A divorce, and one thing I think a lot of people didn't realize, and I didn't realize till later, if you get a divorce, I've had to learn by watching things that I wish I didn't have to watch. When people get a divorce, it causes way more issues than they realize at the time. Some people think they're way better off because they don't have this person to not necessarily be accountable to, but to be with and to necessarily worry about. You're ultimately scarring yourself too. And I haven't been divorced. I have caused problems because of things I have said out of anger and things I've done that I shouldn't have done. But I threatened that line because it's raining. So sorry. I threatened that line because I had heard so many other people do it, and I thought it was just a cliche and didn't realize how dangerous it was. And I was so wrong for doing that. I was so wrong for doing that. So don't take my advice from my mistake in this situation. Don't threaten a divorce unless you're willing to travel that road. But again, that's just my take. I was trying to think if there's anything else. I really don't think there is. There's lots of scripture in the Bible on what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a wife. And I highly suggest, I should have written down more, but I highly suggest definitely talking with your counselor about those, making sure you go through it. And again, keep yourself fresh on them. Do a Bible study together about it. Read the verses from time to time too, and say and question yourself: Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And then ask God for conviction too on things you may need to change. I'm working on myself daily, but that's pretty much all I have. So I hope this episode was okay, and I hope it made sense. And I'm sorry for the lag at the end too. It's 10:40 and the kids wake up at the butt crack of dawn. No exaggeration, the sun's up, they're up. So by the time this point, I may be up, but my brain is mush. So, but thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for listening. I hope I did it justice. I hope I did it halfway justice. But next episode, Mama should definitely be back. If not, we have bigger problems. So we definitely appreciate y'all's support. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment what you thought. But give me like an idea for next time. I have ideas in this notebook, but when it comes time and I list the ideas that we might do, it's always crickets of or like Chronicle Emperor's New Groove. We draw a blank. So thank y'all for listening.